Hi, Algebra 2. Today I'm going to teach you how to graph something that is written in standard form. Remember that looks like ax squared plus bx plus c. Hopefully you remember from earlier that if a is a positive number, that your graph will open up. And if a is a negative number, your graph will open down. C tells you something unique. It will tell you your y-intercept. It tells you where the graph crosses the y-axis. Here's a couple of important features. To figure out the y-intercept, it's located at 0, c. That's what we were saying. To find the axis of symmetry, that's the line that cuts your parabola in half, we're going to use this formula. Instead of saying negative b over 2a, try saying the opposite of b, because that negative sign is going to make your sign change. This vertex is code for do the x and then plug it in and solve for y. So here's the steps. Step number 1, find the axis of symmetry, which is opposite of b over 2a. All right, so let's do number 1. So we have an invisible 1 in front of x squared. So I know that a is 1, b is the 6, and we don't have a c, so you can add in a 0. Step number 1, to find the axis of symmetry, you're going to find opposite of b over 2a. So that plus 6 goes to negative 6 over 2 times 1. That's negative 6 divided by 2 equals negative 3. Your axis of symmetry is x equals negative 3. I would sketch this in. How does your graph open? A is positive, so it opens up. Step number 2, plug your x into the equation and solve for y. So in place of x, now I'm going to plug negative 3 in. We've talked about what happens when x is negative before. You need to put parentheses around this so that when you plug it into your calculator, this gives you 9 minus 18, which is going to be negative 9. So steps 1 and 2 work together, and they tell you your vertex is at negative 3, negative 9. So it's right there on your axis of symmetry. Step 3, plot C and reflected is what it says up above. So my C is at 0 in this case. So when it says plot C, we're talking about the y-axis here. That tells you where your graph crosses the y-axis and reflected across. So this is 1, 2, 3 to one side. Count 1, 2, 3 to the other side. Y-intercept is at 0. Step number 4, find your x-intercepts by using either factoring, or if it doesn't factor, the quadratic formula, or try making a table of values. So this one worked out pretty nicely because when we plotted C and reflected it, that also gave us our x-intercepts. I'm going to go ahead and make a table of values to remind you what that would look like. So take your vertex and put it in the middle, and then choose values that go bigger, bigger, smaller, smaller. I'm plugging -2 into my equation up there. -2 squared plus 6 times -2. 4 minus 12 is -8. I plugged -1 into my calculator, and I got -5. So let's plot these points to get us a better graph. -1, -5, 1, 2, 1, 2. So that's about what your graph looks like. The x-intercepts I can see right here are at -6 and 0. Domain, this is a review topic. We did this back in Unit 1. Domain is all real numbers, which we write as -infinity to +infinity. Domain, recall, are your x's. What x can I plug into my function? Anything that I want to. Your range, what are the y values that you get out of it? So if you kind of make this dashed line, the vertex is either going to be your highest point or your lowest point. So I have this vertex at -3, -9. So I don't have any point that is ever lower than -9, and then it's going up to infinity from there. So I would write this as -9 to infinity. This is your lowest point, so that is a min at -9. Your min or max is always also the y of your vertex. So this is how you get all the information that you need. We're going to do some word problems later, but please note if it says what is the lowest point of something, that is also code for vertex. Let's do another one. So A is 4, B is going to be my -16, and C is 10. Know if your graph opens up or down before you get started. It opens up because A is a positive number. Step number 1, you want to find your axis of symmetry, opposite of B over 2A. Opposite of -16 is +16. Plug in 4 for your A. That's 16 divided by 8, which is 2. There's my axis of symmetry. Step number 2, your vertex always shows up somewhere on this axis of symmetry. I'm plugging 2 in for x. 4 times 2 squared minus 16 times 2 plus 10. I plugged it in my calculator and I got -6. Your vertex is located at 2, -6. Step 3, plot C and reflect it. So remember that your C is where your graph crosses the y-axis. So it crosses at 10. So this is 2 units from the axis of symmetry. Reflect it 2 units to the other side. Step 4. Let's see if we can make a table of values and find where, let's see, my y-intercept, I can answer that question at 10. Let's see if my table of values will get me my x-intercept today. So there's my vertex. Go bigger, bigger, smaller, smaller. I plugged 1 into my equation and I got -2. That 0, 10, I got that from my y-intercept. I didn't even need to plug that one in. So the only other points I get from that are 1, -2, and 3, -2. So I have to graph it, and then it looks something like this. Oh, my graph got a little bit off. It should not look like it's crossing there at the origin. It actually is somewhere in between 0 and 1. All right, so I'm not going to get that. Let's try to factor it. When you make your ACB chart, can you come up with factors of 40 that add to -16? So I started with -2 and -20, got -22. Nope. -4 and -10, and I got -14. No. -5 and -8, and I got -13. No. I tried real hard. I can't find any. So your backup plan is to run the quadratic formula. X equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, so I have 16 plus or minus. I got radical 96 all over 8. And then when I put this into the calculator, I hit 16 plus radical 96, enter, divided by 8, enter, and I got about 3.2. So, yep, it was crossing about 3.2. When I did 16 minus radical 96, enter, divided by 8, enter, I got about 0.8. So, yep, that was the number somewhere in between 0 and 1. So my x-intercepts are about 0.8 and about 3.2. So if you don't get your x-intercepts from the table of values or factoring, you're going to have to end up running the quadratic formula to figure out where the graph crosses the x-axis. Your domain is -infinity to infinity. Your range, so once again, that's at 2, -6. So -6 is my lowest point, and then it goes up from there. So it goes -6 to infinity, and that is the lowest point, which is a minimum value. All right, let's get one more in. So I have this negative in front of x squared, so a is -1, b is 4, and c is -5. I know that that is going to open down because a is a negative number. Step 1, axis of symmetry. You have opposite of b over 2a. So that gives you -4 over 2 times -1. -4 divided by -2 equals +2. There's my line that cuts my graph in half. Plug it in. Negative parenthesis 2 squared plus 4 times 2 minus 5. This negative out front is outside of the parentheses. My x is a positive, so this is -4 plus 8 minus 5, which equals -1. My vertex is at 2,